Hey everyone, it's Matt. So the UFO and the UAP phenomenon, apparently it's finally hit South Texas. And I'm not sure what to think of it, but I want to tell you this story. It's kind of interesting. So let's dive into it. So a few days ago, I got a message from a gentleman named Roy who lives in South Texas. He works in the oil fields of South Texas. It was a straightforward conversation, no frills, talk about something strange that he had seen while he was at work one morning. Now, I don't consider myself an expert in UFOs and UAPs, far from it. But I've always kind of been intrigued by this topic, and I've always been a little bit fascinated by the mysteries and the what-ifs that surround it. And this one really got to me because it's fairly close to my home, and it's grounded, and it's very matter of fact. Roy's story kind of struck me as being unique in some sort of way. Roy wasn't trying to spin a tale or sensationalize something. Yeah, I didn't get the impression he was trying to do this. He was just here to share his experience. He was a little confused by what he had seen, and that left me, and probably anyone else who hears his story, with plenty to ponder. So I want to get into that today, and I want to get your thoughts on this UFO, UAP phenomenon thing. So here's what Roy told me. Okay, so Roy told me that it was about 2 a.m. in the morning when he was working in the oil patch near Karnes City, Texas. It's not too far from where I live. And it was the kind of early morning hour that you'd kind of expect the world to be quiet, be still, not a lot going on. Roy told me that the night surrounding him was kind of surrounded by the crickets. He could hear rattlesnakes. It was fairly kind of the run-of-the-mill kind of hum of the engine, oil field equipment, things like that. There was nothing really standing out to him. But maybe he heard a coyote now and then or something. You know, it wasn't something really strange that kind of, he didn't feel like this night was out of the ordinary. But that's when Roy noticed something unusual happen, okay? Out of the corner of his eye, Roy says that he spotted a light near the ground. It was fairly close to the ground. Now, he's worked in the oil field for 20 years, I think almost 19 years, something like this. And he'd never seen anything quite like this before. And he knew what was normal and what wasn't normal, right? Now, Roy told me he didn't think much of this at first. Now, South Texas has its fair share of hog hunters and even the occasional illegal hunter. So he kind of shrugged it off, assuming that it was one of those, maybe a hog hunter or an illegal hunter or something like that. He didn't think too much of it. But then a few minutes passed, he says, and the light began to behave in a way that didn't sit right with him. It didn't seem quite straightforward. Instead of trying to put, or instead of moving along a certain path, it started acting kind of erratically and changing colors. Now, not only that, here's the thing with this. As I was talking with him, he told me that it began to rise higher and higher in the sky, but his logic still began to kind of play out. He figured, all right, maybe this is a surveyor's drone, or perhaps the local game warden checking on wildlife or hunters or something like this, right? It's not uncommon to see drones in these remote areas, especially given the mix of wildlife management, oil field activity, and sometimes even border patrol operations here in South Texas, here in this area. But he said he continued to watch this and he realized that something was off, as he put it. Something was strange about this. Now here's where it gets a little strange. As the light kind of became closer to him, he could finally make out its shape. He told me it looked like a test tube, okay, which would fit in with the UFO idea of a cigar, okay? But he said it looked like a test tube in the sky. That was the exact words that he used. And when I asked him to estimate the size, he said it must have been the length or the size of a Toyota Corolla. Okay, so this thing was pretty significant. He said it was hovering in the air, silent, steady. It didn't move around much. Now, listen, I'm no UFO expert, but something about this description kind of rang true to me. The clarity in which Roy described this thing to me, and the distinct shape, the strange but purposeful way that it moved, all of this kind of struck with everything that I've heard about UFOs and UAPs. Now, he told me just as suddenly as it appeared, it disappeared. The light vanished without a sound. It went away. No whoosh, no hum, no buzzing, nothing. It was just gone, okay? Roy said that he was kind of left with this feeling as he stood there kind of looking around, wondering if he had imagined this whole thing. Maybe he was sleepy, whatever. He didn't linger on it too long. He just kind of went back to his work, doing his thing, whatever he was doing. And he just kind of chalked it up to one of those strange but not my business kind of things, right? But that's when about 30 to 45 minutes later passed, and the story gets even stranger. So after about 30 to 45 minutes goes by, Roy notices more activity in the sky. This time, it was helicopters flying low. Now get this, helicopters, okay? And they were shining light over the ground as if they were searching for something, Roy said. Roy told me that they looked like Black Hawk helicopters, like maybe they were some sort of military helicopters or something, from what he could tell. But they were quieter than civilian helicopters, so they didn't make a whole lot of noise. Roy said that these choppers just kind of swept back and forth over the area, shining searchlights on the ground, apparently looking for something, and he couldn't say exactly what they were after, but the timing, he said, was kind of uncanny. It was a little strange. So, this whole thing kind of caught him off guard. And so after Roy shared this experience with me, he pointed me in the direction of a friend of his named Frank, who also works in the oil fields of South Texas. He's seen very similar sights. And Frank, too, has witnessed a lot of these unusual lights and activities, unexplained movements, strange helicopters, things like that in the sky. And these guys are just, look, I want to tell you something about these guys. As I talked with them, this is kind of what I came to realize. These are just hardworking, salt-of-the-earth guys who just want to get through their shifts safely, get home. They're trying to make a living. But what they've seen leaves them with questions, okay? And that left me with some questions too, because I felt like Roy and I feel like Frank were being very honest with me about this, right? Now I'm trying to get Roy and Frank both to come on camera. And these guys are not the type of people that are seeking fame. They're not seeking any kind of recognition, anything like this. But I'm trying to get them to come on camera to explain to me and explain to you, if this is something you're curious in, more detail about what they saw, to describe it to us, how they felt, to paint a more clear picture for what others who might be curious about this UFO, UAP phenomenon might be feeling about this. Maybe they've experienced something similar. So I've reached out to the local military bases. There's quite a military presence here in South Texas. I've also reached out to the Border Patrol, hoping to get some sort of response or maybe just an explanation from them on this thing. I don't know, but if I'm being honest, I doubt that I'll hear back. But still, the silence says something of its own, doesn't it? I mean, think about this. The silence from these officials kind of points me in a weird sort of direction. Now, it's easy to be skeptical about UFOs, UAPs, this whole thing, especially when so many sightings turn out to be weather phenomenon, drones, satellites, or some other easily explainable object. But there are instances, I really do believe this, there are instances like Roy's that just don't fit into the narrative. It doesn't fit into the category. So why would something like this be so strange? Something that seems so purposefully evasive, And then why would it be followed by something that appears to be a military response? What would they be searching for? Why would they be flying over South Texas near the oil patch in the middle of the night? What are these things doing here? Are they monitoring something? Are they watching us? And if so, why the secrecy? Was it the Border Patrol doing something, looking for drug runners? Who knows? Who knows? There's all kinds of things, and I think it's something that, a question that bears to have some answers. Let me say this, if you're watching this and you have any advice for Roy, Frank, or even myself, we'd love to hear it. You know, have you had any strange experiences? Have you seen anything like this in the Texas skies or anywhere else? Have you ever looked up and seen or heard or felt anything unsettling and that you're seeing that might be beyond explanation, right? Is this a topic that even interests you? You know, do you think it's all a product of imaginations, too much sci-fi? You know, I don't know what to think of this thing. Leave me a comment below. I'm really curious about this. Let me know what you think. Fact or fiction? It's stories like this that make us question what we truly understand about the world and the skies above us, right? So the UFO, UAP phenomenon is something that's real. You know, it's something real. It's a real mystery. It's waiting to be solved. Or maybe it's just an elaborate trick of the eye. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts. Drop me a comment. I'm going to try to get Roy and try to get Frank here on camera to talk a little bit more about this thing. And hopefully we can get to the bottom of it. I'm Matt Pierce. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. And if you have any advice or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll talk to you soon.